Hello, everyone. It's Wednesday, the 27th, and this Sunday is Pentecost Sunday. And so we'll be reading from the book of Acts, and it's Acts chapter 2, 1 through 21. But before I get into that, you may notice a couple of changes or a couple of different things. For one thing, Marta went to work at the hospital last night, and while she was gone, I took this thing and I did this on my hair. And she came home about 1:30 in the morning and she said, "Oh my gosh, what have you done?" Personally, I don't think it's that bad. Do you? It certainly feels a lot better. So I won't do it again if I don't have to. But gosh, it does feel a lot better just getting. Even if I did it myself, there was huge clumps of hair all in the sink that I had to fish out and throw away. But it does feel better. I don't know if it looks any better or not. But at least I don't have to wear my Callaway golf hat. And the second thing is that I got an email from my dad, and he said, "Hey, I'm enjoying your messages during the week in your sermon, but do you wear the same shirt every single time you do one of these messages? You've always got this blue shirt on." Well, I don't, but the thing is I have like 3 blue shirts, a red one, and a pink one. So just to dispel any notion that anyone else may have that I'm not bathing and wearing dirty laundry, I did put on a red shirt today. I want to talk about Pentecost just a little bit. Pentecost comes from the Greek word Pentecost Day, and it means the 50th or 50th day, and it is the 50th day after Passover. For us as Christians, it's the 49th day or the 7th Sunday after Easter, so it's the 50th day total in that period. Pentecost Day was the 50th day after Passover, and it's the Feast of Weeks and the Feast of 50 Days in rabbinic tradition. And this is, remember Passover, this would be 50 days after God spares the life of every adult male child in Egypt, which is the spurring point for Pharaoh ultimately to free the Israelites. Let me read from Acts chapter 2, 1 through 21. Listen now for the word of the Lord. When the day of Pentecost came, they were all together in one place. Suddenly a sound like the blowing of a violent wind came from heaven and filled the whole house where they were sitting. They saw what seemed to be tongues of fire that separated and came to rest on each of them. All of them were filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in other tongues as the Spirit enabled them. Now there were staying in Jerusalem God-fearing Jews from every nation under heaven. When they heard this sound, a crowd came together in bewilderment, because each one heard them speaking in his own language. Utterly amazed, they asked, "Are not all these men who are speaking Galileans? Then how is it that each of us hears them in his own native language?" Parthians, Medes, and Elamites, residents of Mesopotamia, Judea and Cappadocia, Pontus and Asia, Phrygia and Pamphylia, Egypt and the parts of Libya near Cyrene, visitors from Rome, both Jews and converts to Judaism, Cretans and Arabs, we hear them declaring the wonders of God in our own tongues. Amazed and perplexed, they asked one another, "What does this mean?" Some, however, made fun of them and said they've had too much wine. Then Peter stood up with the 11, raised his voice, and addressed the crowd. "Fellow Jews, and all of you who live in Jerusalem, let me explain this to you. Listen carefully to what I say. These men are not drunk as you suppose. It's only 9 in the morning. No, this is what was spoken by the prophet Joel. In the last days, God says, I will pour out my Spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your young men will see visions. Your old men will dream dreams. Even on my servants, both men and women, I will pour out my Spirit in those days, and they will all prophesy. I will share wonders in the heaven above and signs on the earth below, blood and fire and billows of smoke. The sun will be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the coming of the great and glorious day of the Lord. And everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So just a few things that maybe you can think about as we're approaching Pentecost Sunday and some of the things that we'll be talking about. What does the Holy Spirit sound like to you? It's described as the rush of a violent wind, isn't it? Does that, I wonder, sound like God to you? In our tradition, the Holy Spirit is part of the Trinity. This sounds like there are certain characteristics to the Holy Spirit. The rush of a violent wind. I love how in the book The Shack, the Holy Spirit is described. And if you have the book The Shack, we were going to do a Bible study or a book study on that just before this pandemic broke out, and maybe we'll be able to do that again soon. But how is the Holy Spirit described, or how does the Holy Spirit sound to you? It sounds kind of disruptive, doesn't it? The rush of a violent wind. This story here in Acts, if you think about it, where is a counterpart in the Bible to this story, and how does it sort of dovetail in with this? And I would suggest maybe look in Genesis at the story of the Tower of Babel, and maybe kind of do a little comparison there. In one story, we have people who are on a mission to do a certain thing, and they are split apart, all speaking different tongues. And then we have this story here in Acts with quite a different result, don't we? We have people now all of a sudden speaking in a whole lot of different tongues, but there's a different purpose and a different message here. What is the new message compared to the old message now that Christ has come into the world and has returned to the Father? The Spirit seems to have, if you read what Peter says in Joel, think about what kind of a leveling effect does this Spirit that cannot be controlled or contained have? It seems to reach out to everyone. It seems to break down and tear apart things like barriers. I preached a sermon on fences a little while ago about how when Jesus met the woman at the well, he constantly was tearing down fences of racism and sexism and things of that nature, classism, nationalism, looking down on someone from a different nationality, being Samaritan. And he was constantly breaking down these barriers, and it made people feel very uncomfortable. And I just wonder if, as you read this yourself, as we get ready to go towards Sunday, can you see the leveling effect when Peter quotes from Joel, who says, "Your sons and daughters will prophesy, young men and old men, young women, old women, slaves, men and women." All of them are affected by the Holy Spirit. Perhaps you could dwell on, if we talk about Jesus came to teach us about God, what is the Holy Spirit's effect, both here in Acts and for us too in the 21st century? Also, this is called, Pentecost is often called the birthday of the church. And it celebrates the diversity of the church, but it also speaks to the church's authority to spread the good news. So I'd like you to think about that, even as we're sometimes a church that is divided by doctrine, sometimes we're divided by fences that we have erected and others have erected where we are keeping others out, or perhaps others are keeping us out. We are meant to be, and Pentecost is meant to remind us that we are one universal, holy Catholic church, meaning we're a universal church. How does the day of Pentecost, being the birthday of the church and giving the church the authority to preach the good news to everyone, no matter what part of the world, what language, how does that strike you here in the 21st century as we observe things that are going on in the church today? So I hope this finds you well, and God bless you, and I'm looking forward to sharing this message with you. Cannot wait to see many of you a week from Sunday on the 7th, and hopefully we'll have some more information to come out for you about exactly how that's going to happen. So God bless you all. Happy Pentecost week. Bye-bye.